You see, today we are celebrating the values of the Constitution. Constitution is our mantra. Constitution is the basic document which has constituted our country into a sovereign democratic republic. See, this is the venture. Constitution is a venture through words by some population to create a document which will control the rulers, the government, and also the sovereign people who have created that document. Look at that. They have drafted a document and subjected not only their government but also themselves to the same document which they have created. And this document structurizes the exercise of power, carving out a domain of liberty for the benefit of the individuals. See, when Indians were to frame this constitution for India, Lord Birkenhead had made a very casual statement questioning the capability, because Simon Commission was opposed, questioning the capability of Indians to frame a constitution for such a diverse country, which has so many castes, classes, and religions. Indians not only drafted a complete constitution, they have drafted a constitution which has stood the test of the time because of the values that are there in that constitution. Dr. Babu Rajendra Prasad as the chairman of the Constituent Assembly, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar as the chairman of the drafting committee, and Dr. Sir Benegal Rao as the constitutional advisor to Constituent Assembly, deliberated over a period of time and constituted that Constitution of India, which we, the people, have adopted and given unto ourselves on this auspicious day which we are celebrating today. See, that is the most beautiful aspect about the Constitution. It is our own creation. Because it is our own creation, the values that are there in the Constitution should be the life breath of everyone, whether he is a political leader, whether he is a bureaucrat, whether he is from the business house, whether he is a common man. All of us have to imbibe the values of the Constitution. And all of us have to manifest these values in the day-to-day life. Being a professor of constitutional law, if I am discriminatory, it is not worth. I have to practice the principles which are there in the Constitution. That is the requirement. And that's what, when we celebrate the Constitution Day, that is the day on which we have to rededicate ourselves to the values that are there in the Constitution. So it is a reaffirmation of the promise that we have made to ourselves through this Constitution, we the people of India. So in this context, what happens is it becomes a greater responsibility on the public figures to behave in a constitutionally responsible manner because the common people emulate them. Any public personality, whether it is a film star or whether it is a great statesman in the field of governance, bureaucrat, politician, a professor, a lawyer, anybody, they should be responsible in their behavior and conduct, and they should celebrate these values in their day-to-day life. What are these values? Right from the preamble through various provisions of the Constitution, these values come to light in various ways: justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, and dignity. These are the values that are there in the Constitution. And it was our goal to establish a sovereign, socialistic, secular, democratic republic. So what is at the core is the domain of liberty, the fundamental rights we have incorporated, entrenched into the Constitution. To keep these rights beyond the reach of any political majority. We say constitutional law is anti-majoritarian. Any government with any thumping majority in the parliament cannot touch this domain of liberty that is carved out by the Constitution for the people of India. That is the important thing. And because of having such a wonderful Constitution, we are in a position to secure certain very basic of the human rights, like freedom from fear, freedom from hunger, and freedom of faith. See, this is very important, and in many a number of countries across the globe, these basic values are not available, and these are the things which are very easily available for us. That's why somewhere it is stated, we who are born into the free country, we do not know the value of the freedom that we have. Those freedom fighters were knowing when they were ready to lay down their life for this liberty, which, see, somewhere it is stated, you need not pay anything for your liberty because it is heavily, richly paid by your ancestors earlier. We should understand, we should remember that prodigious sacrifice our elders, our ancestors have made for the purpose of attaining this freedom and framing this constitution. What is there in the constitution? What is there in the constitution is a sort of silent revolution that was contemplated by the constitution makers when they drafted part 3 and part 4 of the constitution, fundamental rights and directive principles of it. And silently, unconsciously, this revolution has come into existence, and we have the examples. Son of a boatman occupies the presidential palace in this country. That is possible because it is a republic. Son of a farmer becomes the prime minister of India. And we have heard stories of the children from the unheard families, rural, rustic backgrounds, occupying high constitutional positions and holding high constitutional authorities, constitutionally established institutions like the Supreme Court, the Parliament, and the ministry, and bureaucracy, everything. It is all possible because of this social revolution. When India became independent, in fact, people were scared whether that egalitarian system will come into existence with all this type of caste discrimination. And we should be so proud that by now caste discrimination has almost come to an end. The irrational practices like untouchability, etc., are unheard of here and there. Rarely some cases may be reported, and soon that also is going to be the matter of past. So when they drafted fundamental rights and directive principles, we should remember their thinking was rooted deep in the struggle for independence. And because they were having the experience of living under foreign subjugation, they drafted these parts of fundamental rights and directive principles with the hope and expectation that one day the tree of true liberty would bloom in India, and it has bloomed. And these are the rights which we are uh, given based on the experience of the past, and we are enjoying them in the present, and we should preserve this domain of fundamental rights for the enjoyment of posterity in days to come. That was the type of social revolution that was contemplated, and that has come into reality. Whether this constitution is effective, a foreign writer, Granville Austin, who wrote a book, Indian Cornerstone of a Nation, at the beginning of the Constitution, he observed the working of this Constitution for 50 years. At the end of 50 years, he wrote another book, Working of a Democratic Constitution, wherein he has made an assessment of working of this Constitution. Therein, he observes like this: when considering the effectiveness of a Constitution, it must be understood that it has real existence only the way it is used. See, we have different countries with fascinating, fantastic constitutions, but those constitutions are not used. The real existence of the constitution is its user, the way it is used. That is the real constitution for any country. A constitution can be judged only by its adequacy to situations it was designed to meet. When it was enacted, what was the situation which it was designed to meet? And further, whether it is in a position to meet the demands of the changed scenario. Applying these criteria to the Indian Constitution, the author says The primary example of its effectiveness has been the smoothness with which a successor government to that of the Prime Minister Nehru was chosen. And from that period till now, there are elections periodically conducted in this country, and there is smooth transition of power from one elected government to another elected government. And this smooth transition of power from one civilian government to another civilian government, our neighbor Pakistan had to wait for 60 years. After 60 years of independence in that country, the power passed on from one elected government to another elected government. Otherwise, never it has happened, except that exception of single instance, never it has happened in Pakistan or in any of our neighboring countries, whether it is Sri Lanka, Nepal, uh, Afghanistan, Burma, Bangladesh, and all that. See, that is the success of our constitution, which provided for the smooth transition. Right now, we are in the aftermath of the election of the American president. Our transition is not going to be that smooth, and there are hiccups and say stumbling blocks, and the whole world is watching. A country with a constitution which has celebrated democracy for over 220, 230 years has hiccups. But look at this marvelous constitution, which our constitutional forefathers has given us, which has provided for smooth transition of power in this country over a period of more than 7 decades. That is the importance of this constitution. That's why we have to appreciate the wisdom and capabilities of all those great constitutional forefathers. Former Vice President of India, Hamid Ansari, in one of the articles that is published in Bhavan's Journal, it is titled, Why Pluralism and Secularism Are Essential for Our Democracy. Secularism and pluralism are the hallmarks of the society in India. In India, we are a pluralistic society, and we like each other, we respect each other, we coexist each because we are guided by this principle of secularism. In this context, the observation of the former vice president is any assessment of the functioning of our democracy has to be both procedural and substantive. The assessment of functioning of our democracy should be procedural and substantive. On procedural count, the system has developed roots with regularity of elections, efficacy of electoral machinery, and ever-increasing percentage of voter participation in the electoral process and the formal functioning of legislatures thus elected. So on procedural front, how we are working this democracy procedurally, fantastic, we are highly successful. But when it comes to the point of substantive accomplishment, success, he has some riders. He says the score is less emphatic on the substantive aspect, and he lists 5 factors wherein this is lacking. 5 of these aspects are: one, the gap between equality before law and equal protection of laws. Equality before law was achieved in one go, one sentence it was, but equal protection of law, it is had to be realized. We have gone substantially ahead, but it is to be addressed further substantively. Representativeness of elected representatives. How representative our representatives are. This is another, whether this first past post the system is good to translate the will of the people, or whether we need a better system which will represent the popular will is another question, because the people who are polling minority of the votes and sometimes micro minority of the votes are also getting elected so as to represent the 100% of the uh, electorate. Functioning of the legislature, sometimes we get disturbed by that. Gender and diversity imbalance and secularism in practice. But by and large, we have to appreciate that even on substantive issue also, we have progressed well ahead in this period of 70 years of working of this democratic constitution. So when all these great people joined in the Constituent Assembly, deliberated over a period of 2 years, 11 months, and finalized the Constitution. All of them spoke in the concluding session of the Constituent Assembly, and whatever they spoke, all of them spoke with the same voice, which has ultimately culminated in a statement that was made by Babu Rajendra Prasad in the concluding session of the Constituent Assembly. It goes like this: whatever the Constitution may or may not provide, the welfare of the country will depend upon the way in which the country is administered. That will depend upon the men who administer it. It is a trite saying that a country can have only the government it deserves. Our Constitution has provisions in it which appear to some people objectionable from one point or the another. Sorry, we must admit that the defects are inherent in the situation and the people at large. If the people who are elected are capable and men of character and integrity, they would be able to make the best even of a defective constitution. If they are lacking in this, the constitution cannot help the country. After all, constitution, like a machine, is a lifeless thing. It requires life because of men who control it or operate it. And India needs today nothing more than a set of honest men who will have the interest of the country before them. See, the statement that was made then is good even for today also. In one of the speeches, that great advocate Palkiwala made an observation that men far below the national average character are getting elected to the parliament. We have to elect the competent, capable people to officiate in these offices so that the constitutional goals will be translated into reality for the benefit of the common man. Justice H.R. Khanna, in that book, Indian Constitution in the Making, has made a wonderful statement. When he speaks about the Constitution, he says, petty minds ill go with the governance of great countries. The edifice of nations and national institutions, we should remember, take long to build. When them is the story of sweat, blood, and tears, of untold suffering and sacrifice, yet they can be destroyed overnight by the vanishment of principles or by the selfishness, petty mindedness, or folly of men. If the Indian Constitution is our heritage, bequeathed to us by our founding fathers, no less are we, the people of India, the trustees and custodians of the values which pulsate within these provisions. A constitution is not a parchment of paper, it is a way of life and has to be lived up to. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, and in the final analysis, its only keepers are the people. Imbecility of men, history teaches us, always invites impudence of power. What a statement. See, we are the people. We have inherited this constitution. This constitution is bequeathed to us. And this is not a mere document, it is a way of life. It is a way of life, and we are under an obligation to live up to it. We have an obligation to live up to it. And because it is a way of life, it is like a mantra. Mantra used to be incanted every day. The values that are there in the Constitution, the values that pulsate, they are heartbeats of the Constitution. And those heartbeats should become our heartbeats also. Then we can be proud of the fact that we are celebrating the values that are there in the Constitution. See, it is such a wonderful day for a student of constitutional law to speak about the theme celebrating the values in the Constitution. It is a very great thing that the Field Outreach Bureau of Dharwad, District Information and Public Relations Office, these officers came together along with the officers of the Karnataka State Law University, and several people have worked to realize this program. And I thank everyone for providing me this opportunity to share few of my thoughts on this occasion. Thank you very much.